If you haven't been keeping up with the Overwatch Pro scene, you may be convinced that it's only a 3-3 mirror non-stop, but some pro teams are trying to buck the trend and come up with some inventive strategies to throw their opponents off guard. Today we're going to take a look at a few cool team compositions and how they interact with each other, and funnily enough, I think a lot of this is information that you can translate into your own ranked games. This first one, opening up on Hanamura, Atlanta Academy is running a pure defend the choke anti-goat setup, Bastion and Mei. Kingarna scouts this and comes up with a perfect solution. You see, if you're ever struggling with heroes that have extreme choke control, Junkrat, Mei, Bastion setup defensively and you can't get around it, there's two options. You go bigger mobility, so you just dodge their area of effectiveness, or you take your slow comp through a teleporter. Kingarna sneaking past on this angle gets them onto point, gets their Symmetra set up defensively, and then they poke and sustain using the cover of the bell in the center of the point, making it hard for the Bastion to have any line of sight. Now, oddly enough, Symmetra quick peeking around this corner is going to do more effective DPS than the Bastion even would, because unless the Bastion somehow catches somebody out making a mistake, peeking for too long, it's not going to get a kill. And onto point B is where the Symmetra strats really start to get nutty. They use the teleporter to get to the far side of the map to take a bit more of a safer approach, and then really high value Symmetra wall splits off the line of sight of the Bastion, gets them onto point, and is going to steal away a tick basically for free. Now the defense does get enough frags in order to stop this push, but hey, I'll take a tick on a push. Attacking on this point can be quite stressful. And we'll note as well, one of the key stars in all of this was the Diva Bomb. These big defensive setups, Torbjorn, Orisa, any entrenched position is always going to be really weak to ultimates like Diva Self-Destruct or Hanzo's Dragon Strike. And oftentimes you'll have to play in order to get those ultimates online to even have a chance of getting past this on a normal engage. Next engagement, Kingarna up to their old tricks again, gets their Symmetra wall to zone off the point, but at this point, Atlanta Academy has been using their own Symmetra and counter walls. I don't think I ever expected to see this in a professional level game. They exert their control, they aren't able to kill the Bastion, and yeah, at this point, I'd be looking to swap it up. The high ground control that Bastion gets up here from this teleporter is actually insane. We saw this in the group stage of the World Cup as well. Team USA pulled this out, but you can see up against these really slow tanky compositions, this is pretty legit. If nothing else, it will force your enemy to swap it up and play characters that are a bit more mobile. So what do they do? Well, we're seeing dive comp again in 2018. Somebody pinch me. Now, as Kingarna starts to regroup, it's really important to remember that they're not going to get a dive off onto this Bastion. That's a big mistake. Committing onto it is not the goal. Exploiting the fact that they're in an entrenched position to launch ults at them is the way that you want to approach this. Now, that can be hard because building ults up against a shield that you can't break and you can't seem to get any ground can be difficult, but remember, that's your win condition. So you more so want to get good ground that allows you to poke from different angles and forces them to reposition and chase you than you want to just full commit, because that Bastion will just eat your Winston alive. So they take quite a long approach here, but the Diva Bomb is everything that they needed. Launches it right at the Bastion, which forces him to reposition, and boom, instant reversal of fortunes with the high ground. Now we have our Hanzo way up on the high ground. He's going to be able to shoot down and frag the Bastion, and with one fell swoop on that clean engagement onto the turret setup, we move all of the ground into our favor. It's this kind of stuff is the reason why you don't see too much Bastion ever get played, because a coordinated engage like this destroys it so well. And the Diva Bomb being kind of the hero in that entire setup. They also could use the Hanzo ult for the same purpose, even through a wall. Remember that as well. Now, onto Kingarna's next attack. You might expect this Symmetra strategy to work, but look at the adaptation. They send their Diva player Hawk to the teleporter location in order to counter it. He intercepts it, so then Kingarna attempts to go for a straight dry push into the inside room, but the wall cuts them off. That and the anti-nade over the top, the Reinhardt just gets shredded. Divide and conquer indeed. Now, Wub will attempt to keep launching that teleporter out into the distance, and now there's like a teleporter metagame here, where Atlanta is attempting to destroy it before it gets online, because they know if the team's able to get past there too quickly, it'll be just like the first attack where the attacking side has a major advantage and the Bastion somehow has to retake, which you don't want to do. They are able to successfully intercept the teleporter, and that spells ruin for this attack. In their defense, these Symmetra versus Bastion metagame strats aren't too well refined, I would say. I think trying to teleport out into the open was a bit of a mistake. They could have just teleported into the room that they were trying to run and escape to anyway. That's the angle that the defense was giving you. Use that teleporter cooldown as many times as you need to get the perfect positioning you want. It's not like the Bastion comp is going to come chase you anyway. It can't. They had a free line of sight into that side room. I think if they telly there, they're probably safe to set up to telly again in a few seconds to the spot they really want to get to and just leapfrog their way to point. That's essentially how you even take this type of engagement with a dive comp or mobility characters, what have you, where you always want to look to take the space the defense is giving you and then operate from there. That's the general principle of staging an attack. You want to go take the ground that they're letting up and then leverage that to get to the ground you really want. Okay, on to our next clip now. The last clip was looking at Contenders NA. This one is my region, South America, where you can see me be on the virtual analyst desk on half of the broadcast, at least, that broadcast GG does for the South American region. And we've seen this strat quite a few times, but I think this was the best example of how devastating this Mei can be, played to perfection. So what are we looking at here? You may be tempted to call this a Snoats comp, where it's Goats plus Mei instead of Brigida this time. And the goal of it, I think, is incredibly obvious once we look at this camera angle. What Mei does here is cycle her cooldowns to stall the objective by standing on the other side of the wall. Then when the wall goes down, either she uses her icicle to stall the objective further, and then the Reinhardt pops in to stall it himself, and the goal is to keep the cart here for as long as possible. This is an extreme cheese strat, I suppose. However, it's incredibly effective, and frankly, a big percentage of the current metagame is all about stalling the cart anyway with multi-tank. Most teams just attempt to go right to the point and defend on the objective, but this igloo strategy is even a bit safer than that. And if you thought it was done, well, it's not. You actually can do this again, now this time right next to the Mega under Big Earls, where the same principle applies. The issue is, the green team, Caverna Esports, actually has a pretty good comp against this. The problem is, the triple tank has so much damage denial that it's hard for the DPS to do anything meaningful, and when you're playing up against the Mei, well, unless she makes a massive mistake, she has 1,000 lives as well, able to wall herself off or icicle, so just the pure amount of sustain to stall the objective is insane here, with massive AoE healing from the Lucio and the Moira. Remember as well, we're not using the Lucio to speed at all. Those amp it ups are straight up healing, so it's going to be hard for Caverna to be able to deal with this in the mid-fight whatsoever. Of course, you have the Blizzard, which is going to be used to great effect as well. I think you guys get the point of this strategy. We'll be able to show you examples of how this can be countered in the next example, so we'll move along to even just show you where they set up on the next point as well. Next corner around the payload, now they can operate outside of this mega health pack as well, setting up a new igloo. Ince is going to get the cart moving eventually, but they're just so short on time. They're at a massive disadvantage at this point to finish the map. They will end up losing it later on just by merely not being able to play the clock quite as well. And this is an issue that a team in the South Korean region, Stormquake, has been attempting to deal with themselves, where they've been pulling out a quad DPS setup a few times, and I want to discuss why that is. Well, up against the Goats comp here, there's a bit of a principle that I want to break down, and at some point on Twitter, I made a statement that a lot of pros had severe issue with, that I said the Goats mid-fight isn't very good, and of course that sounds ridiculous when you consider how it just simply runs over teams. But if we look at the way this team fight went, or perhaps look back to Team South Korea playing up against it in the World Cup playoffs, going up against Team UK, it doesn't look like Goats has a mid-fight if you play the right comp. It looks like it stands still and gets shot until they eventually die. The only problem is, it usually takes one of two things. Some of the best players in the world in Team South Korea, so maybe this entire argument's a bit unfair, or we do it the Stormquake way, where they just play so many DPS characters that somebody's gonna find some value and will just overload the enemy's sustain with our own ability to do damage. Because remember, you even think back to that Mei comp, do they have any meaningful range? No, they're just a pure stand on the objective and heal themselves type composition. So when you're under no range threat whatsoever, when you can't get dove, there's nothing to stop you from just playing more ranged characters. Even things that you wouldn't consider very meta, like Roadhog's probably good, fishing inside of a hole looking for hooks, because the sustain only really works when they're hiding inside of an igloo. Even just pulling them out of it will help you divide and conquer. But perhaps one of the more problematic things about this being the case is that we're requiring, especially even pro players who have spent their entire careers mastering tanks, to be put into a situation where we either run the full goats comp, which fully enables tanks, or we try to counter either goats or these mass sustain comps and actually need more damage picks to have any hope of quote-unquote countering some of the meta standard. And I say quote-unquote because in reality at the top level meta, even attempting to do this quad DPS doesn't really work, because it only takes a few small changes from a goat's composition to flip this on its head. If your Reinhardt's getting styled on by range damage, they typically just go to a Winston and feel like that's basically all you need. Either that, or they will eventually get some of their powerful combo ultimates online, and having a team full of squishies, well, just can't outplay that. A real support ult or a real tank ult reminds us why this quick play-esque firing squad comp with tons of damage characters isn't really viable. It just can win a free fight against these close range sustain brawl comps that are all about damage denial and healing. But once they enter the other stages of the game, well, you don't really have an answer. But at the very least, with the right combination of ultimates, whether it be a Diva Bomb, Junkrat Tire, or Hanzo's Dragon Strike, keep those in mind whenever you're trying to dismantle some of these extreme entrenched defenses. Guys, it's gonna be everything for today's video. Did you enjoy the breakdown of the wacky pro strats we've been seeing recently? I'm excited for them to finally get onto our patch as well, playing with Ashe, and hopefully this shield bash change isn't as horrible as some of the pros said it is going to be. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because we upload each and every day, so you're gonna want to hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Link in the description is our Twitter, where we tweet out news updates and dank memes. That's been it for me. I've been Freedo for your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.